Welcome to the podcast, guys. Today I am interviewing Amir Dar, the founder of Last Mile Hero. If you like what you see here, please subscribe to us on YouTube, on TikTok, on YouTube Shorts, to Spotify, you name it, we're there. I hope you enjoy this podcast. See you at the end. I want to say, first of all, thank you for allowing us and hosting us here. Introduce yourself, Amir. What do you do, and what business do you currently run?
So, as I told you, as you guys saw, my name is Amir, right? And what we do is we do we are within the logistics sphere, right? We do anything and everything that concerns with logistics, right? We do last mile, we do white glove. These are the industry words, right? We also do packaging. We also do storage from the warehouse side, right? So our business, if we go, the way I wanted to structure the business was to touch every little thing, right? Not to put all my eggs in one basket, right? I wanted to create multiple revenue streams within this industry, right? So I started with it. So what I did was I looked at it in a way that, hey, where can I make money, right? If one segment of the business goes down, right, there has to be another segment that picks it up, right? Mm-hmm. Because eventually, we are all businesses are affected with the macroeconomic policies that are made in the country, right? Or especially, I see the West is very sensitive to these policies, right? Mm-hmm. Third world countries, not that much, right? But in the West, if you want to be an entrepreneur, you have to be aware of what macroeconomic policies are being made, right? Who's the new president's coming in? How it's going to affect your industry, right? So all these things, you have to understand that, right?
A good example of that would be like Airbnb, right? Where every single city in the United States has different regulations for Airbnbs and how they should be governed. Like in the city of Atlanta, right, they only allow you or permit you to have one, as long as you're, citizen, or my mistake, not a citizen, but a resident of the state of Georgia, one in the city of Atlanta itself.
Really? I didn't know that. Really?
Okay. Yeah, but outside of Atlanta, you can have as many as you like.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So the city of Atlanta has made that regulation for the city of Atlanta.
Oh, wow. So if you go to a state and you have different counties, different cities, right, and different...
So each county, so you have the regulations sitting at different levels of government, which makes it very different. But coming back to Last Mile Hero for about a minute, what I want to learn more about is, how did you actually start? Because in our previous conversation that we were just having, you mentioned that you were originally at PWC,
right,
and you were a consultant pretty much.
Right.
So how did you transition from being a consultant to being the founder of Last Mile Hero? Tell us a little bit about the story, how that happened. How did that emerge out of your journey at PWC?
So, see, that's a very good question, right? I remember Mullah Rumi's quote. He said that God has put a desire in your heart, right? Everybody, God has put the desire to do something in their heart, for their passion. All you need to do is find it, right? For me, when I graduated from school, right, I was working with Coca-Cola, but I was doing 9-to-5 job. It was not satisfying, right? I felt like that I'm just being an average Joe, right? Wakes up in the morning, 7 in the morning, gets to work at 9, gets done at 3, 4, 5, right? But that was not fulfilling for me, right? But it took, so you have to understand, I started my business in the latter part of my life, right? And it was because nobody in my family had ever thought of becoming an entrepreneur, right? We were from the childhood, we were taught, oh, if you want to be successful, go to school and go work a good job and become a doctor or engineer. Nobody ever taught, hey, you can be an entrepreneur as well, right? But when I worked for PWC, it was horrible. Horrible means life. I had no life. I was traveling 80% of the time, right? I would leave out on Monday, come back Thursday, and then I was working on the weekends as well. And I felt like that's not life, right? I have to have life for myself, right? I have to create a welfare for myself, where I'm the person who's driving my own vehicle for my own destiny, financial destiny, right? So that's what it was. I had the desire in my heart. All I had to do was find it, right? It was a tough decision to make. It was not an easy decision to make. Not everybody can make that decision. I had those chances and circumstances in my life that helped me do that, right?
When you say chances and circumstances, describe what those were. Because not everybody understands what those circumstances are.
Right.
Like, what do you mean by that exactly?
So, very good question. I have friends who are very successful. I have friends who are, who I can say that can be good businessmen and entrepreneur, but they cannot do that. Why? They're married, they have mortgages, they have families, right? To start something new, right? It takes time. Nothing happens overnight, right? And I remember when I was at PWC and I would tell my friends, hey, I want to start a business. They say, hey, why don't you keep this job that you're already making 6 figures out of, right? And do a business, right? But that never happens that way. You can never do a business this way. You cannot have your 1 feet in one boat, another feet in another boat. No, you have to completely dedicate yourself for what you, especially business requires blood and sweat. Okay. It's not an easy thing. It's no picnic, right? And I tell you, when I started my business, it was a logistic business. I started with just one man. They didn't buy trucks. I've driven myself 250,000 miles in U.S. over the road.
So what kind of truck are we talking about? Are we talking about like an Amazon van that we normally see that delivers? Or are we talking about like a Toyota Tundra crew cab? Like, what kind of truck are we talking about here?
Okay, the trucks we're talking about, they're commercial trucks. Okay, commercial trucks means, so if you look at the truck categories, you have vans, you have box trucks, right? And then you have tractor trailers.
Big, like 18-wheeler.
18-wheeler, big rigs, right? I started out from a van and I realized this is not making me money.
How did you get your first client?
That's a very good question, right? Here's another thing I want everybody to know and to remember. Before you go into any industry that you have no idea about or you've never done any kind of work in that industry, spend your initial 6 months researching that industry. Okay? I was lucky. I had friends who were in the industry who guided me, who told me, hey, you got to do this, you got to do that, you got to do that, right? And going back to your question, yes, you got a van now, but you need to have a customer, right? You can have all the fancy stuff, but at the end of the day, if you don't have a customer, you're not able to generate revenue, right? So, but again, I also believe in where there's a will, there's a way, right? An entrepreneur never loses his faith, never loses his cool, right? This is one of the biggest things being an entrepreneur is to control your nerves, to not let things get to you, right? Not to be disappointed by what people say or what you're seeing, right? There's always a light at the end of the tunnel. Okay, remember that, right? But in order to achieve that, right, you have to be very consistent and determined, right? So I had no customer. Forest Park in Atlanta, Georgia, south of Atlanta, is where the entire shipment comes from all over the world, okay? So Atlanta is one of the shipments hub, okay?
So I'm guessing this is all air freight primarily that's coming?
No, that's not air freight. That's the ocean freight. All kind of freight. Air freight, ocean freight.
Rail, how is it getting all the way from, like, let's say Savannah, because Savannah is the closest port, right? And Atlanta is roughly 400 miles away. How is it getting here?
So the good question, on trucks.
Okay.
So you see the big containers coming from Savannah. If you go to Savannah in the morning, right, or you're coming from Savannah, you will see trucks lining up to Atlanta, right? Because all the shipment is coming. And Savannah is the 3rd largest port in U.S., right?
Really? I didn't
know
that. Yes. So I knew the Port of Los Angeles was one.
It's one of New York,
right? And then I was thinking D.C. would have been in the top 3.
Savannah is one of the top 3s, right? Where a lot of shipment comes from the Southeast, especially, right? And so I knew Atlanta was where the shipment is. I would go, and one of the things that happened to me, I was able to find a person, a driver for my van, right? Mr. Lee he was an African-American, 70-year-old guy, right? A cancer survivor person, right? He took me under his wing. He was he drove most of his life. He was in the freight business. He drove trucks, right? And Mr. Lee and I, what we would do, we would go sit in Atlanta. We would knock on doors, right? And in 9 times out of 10, I would get disappointed. People would say, nobody want to hire somebody in the new, who came in the market, right? People already, and remember, the shipment, people already have the carriers, right? 4 years. That
You were knocking the doors of other businesses.
I just got it. All right. I would go to freight forwarders. I would go to brokers. I would knock the door. I would say, hey, nobody wants you to, nobody will give you their shipment, right? Or entrust you with the shipment, right? You have to have some kind of work history.
Exactly. Or some sort of history in the industry or a client that you already worked with, right? Okay.
So through Mr. Lee, I got my foot in the door to this company, right? And they gave me their first shipment. Do you know, after 5 years, 80% of my work comes from that company?
Wow.
Do you know why?
It's because you built that relationship with Mr. Lee to get and build out that network.
Mr. Lee was a factor to get foot in the door, I would say, right? Mr. Lee was just a driver, a very good driver. He taught me how to drive a van, how to drive a truck, right?
Mm-hmm.
He taught me everything. My 250,000 miles were with Mr. Lee, wherever I went, Mr. Lee was with me. But the problem, and I used to ask Mr. Lee always this question. I said, Mr. Lee, you've been in the industry for, God knows, 50 years, right? How come you never had your own business? Because he was not a businessman. He was an average worker who just knew how to get up, drive a van, and that's all he wanted to deal with. He did not want to grow for his knowledge. But here's the thing. I took his knowledge, what his knowledge was, right? And I capitalized on it. Capitalize means he got my foot in the door with his customer. And people can get your foot in the door, but let me tell you, once you're in the door, right? It's only you, right? That's it. Then it depends on you, how you carry yourself, right? How you build your trust with your customer. What kind of service you provide, that's only on you, right? So with me, I had a ton of experience with alcohol. I had a ton of experience. I had the education background. Don't get me wrong, education is important, right? I used to have a teacher in my management class. He said, most students go through university. Very few students, the university goes through them, right? When I heard that, I was like, he's absolutely right.
Powerful statement.
Really? When you let a school or education go through you, that's when you can do a lot of things, okay? So I had all this knowledge. I had my background, also education. I started building relationship. I was a van driver, but I was very professional. I would show up on time. I would keep my van clean. I had a brand new van, right? I would keep my communication with my customers like on the dot, right? My customer would call and say, Amir, we love your communication. So once I got my foot in the door, this customer, they started giving me their shipments. I felt like van is not enough. Now I have to get a truck, right? And once you build that trust with your customer, the customer will come to you and solicit more services to you, right? Would tell you, hey, we have this work. Can you handle this? Can you handle that, right? Now, that time you have to see what your capacity is. How can you grow, right? Mm-hmm. There's a risk factor comes in as well, right? What if I get another truck and he gives me only a little bit of work, right? How am I going to support financially?
But it's also scary too in a way, because if you're, I guess it depends on the kind of entrepreneur you are. If you're more fear-based, you're going to go like, okay, how do I begin to occupy this truck as much as I can so I can derive the most revenue? Whereas if you come from more of an abundance mindset, you're going to be able to, you're going to go like, okay, yeah, we have a truck. Now, how do I capitalize on, how do I grow it? How do I expand my relationships? And how do I deliver a better service or a better product to my end user, which in this case would be the freight forwarders or whoever else it is, right?
So I was in a service industry. So for me, the fundamental thing was to provide the best service in the world, right? Whether it's communication, even when I would sit with my customer, I would dress up, I would wear the uniform. I still come to work and I wear a uniform, right? I had badges, right? With my drivers, everybody would have badge. Everybody else you would see would show up in their jeans, right? We would go there professionally. And not only that, one of the most important things you have to understand, and when you're in any kind of business, you have customers, right? And you either providing services or products, right? You have customers, and those customers have customers. It's a whole value chain, right? So when I would take a job from this customer, right, and I would take his job, his work to the other customer, and I would provide them the best services too, right? And then they would communicate with this customer, hey, let Amir bring this next time. I'll give you an example. We did a work with AT&T. I was given a project. So one of the business segments, we'll go into that later, we also do white glove service, B2B, business to business white glove service, right?
Yeah.
Generally, this entails to moving data centers, right? Or this entails to reverse logistic project, right?
So what's a reverse logistics project? That is the first time I've ever heard of it, actually.
Good question. So reverse means bringing back, right? And reversing. Logistics means bringing stuff back, right? So reverse logistics, a lot of companies have this need for reverse logistics. What that is, let's say a data center is closing, right? They want this stuff moved from point A to a different point B, right? So, or they want to move their stuff and take it for recycling. So you're going to their location, you're taking this stuff and you're bringing it or taking it somewhere else. That's reverse logistics. A bank is shutting down. Yeah. Bank will call you and say, hey, we're shutting down. We don't need the stuff, right? Could you send somebody who move it? These are fancy words, industry lingos, right? Hey, if somebody says, Amir, there's a reverse logistic project, I already know what am I supposed to do, right? Stuff like that. So we did this for a big company, AT&T, and it was a project. They needed 5 guys to move the entire stuff, right? If I had chosen not to go, I had chosen not to go, right? But I decided I'm going to lead the project. I had good guys. I mean, I knew some guys who I trusted them at work, but I said, no, I'm going to go myself, right? I told my customer, hey, I'm going to go by myself. What I did, the first thing I did, I created a whole timeline. We're going to New York, right? We're going to be there for 5 days. This is what we're going to do. We're going to bring the stuff back. It's just simple, right? You're going to New York for 5 days with guys, you bring the stuff back. But no, this is not the way you do it, right? The way I did, I created a project plan. I know I'm dealing with AT&T. Now the PWC stuff kicks in, right? I'm dealing with AT&T now. And my customer's customer is a big customer, right? These people understand professionalism. These people understand when a timeline is given. So I created a slide only with the timeline. Hey, this is the time, this is the day we're going to get there. This is the time there we're just staying. This time we're going to be at the location to pick up. This is how many hours we'll spend, right? All that. And I sent it to my customer. It was like, Amir, you don't need that, right? It's like, just keep it. Give it to your customer. Let them know this is what we're doing, right? Put your logo on it, right? So they put their logo on the slide. We went there. We got there. Their POC point of contact was there. He had that in his hand, right? Mm-hmm. We go there and he says, I identify myself as I said, hey, I'm the project manager, right? And they had some other labor as well for us. And I collected all the labor in one row. I said, hey, this is what we're going to do. This is how we're going to execute all. It's just picking up stuff. No, right? Mm-hmm. You make it look like that you're doing the most important thing in the world, right? Mm-hmm. That's human nature, right? You make even your wife, right? Or your girlfriend, whatever, right? Yeah. You make them feel special, right? That's what they want. Same thing here, same concept, right? Mm-hmm. I made they say, hey, this guy came in. He's like giving a briefing to all these people. And then after that, things happened. And we were out. We didn't stay there. Nobody was sitting there. Oh, I need a smoke break. No, right? Things were done in a timely manner. And before the POC came to me and said, man, we did this in the past. And it was a night project, right? Mm-hmm. Because data centers generally moved at night, right? Mm-hmm. And nobody wants to stay up. Graveyard shift is not the most desirable shift, right? During the day, it's fine if people drink coffee. Right at night, people just want to get the hell out of wherever they are. Right? We did so. It was like they would take the whole. We would leave here 8 a.m. and right now it's 4 a.m. and everything is done. I was like, yeah. I was like, well, I made sure everything's streamlined. Right? We're working. We're not wasting a lot of time. We're out. We did the project. It came out. Next day, another project came in, and my customer said, Amir, I don't want to give you a big head, but let me tell you, they asked for you in their own project meeting. They're saying, hey, send that Amir guy. Right? Now, here's what happened. The whole thing I let my customer know, hey, your customer is my customer, right? It's still your customer. I'm still working under your banner, right? But I'm going to treat them as my customer. Secondly, now I can call my own rate. Now I can call my own price. People will pay the price based on the service you provide. Okay? And remember, nobody wants you to pay money. Big corporations don't want to pay you money, right? So these are the things you do. You establish your service level, good, right? And you keep both sides happy, right? And that's how the work comes to you. So see, that's a very good question, right? You have to understand a small business, when it starts from nothing, you have limited capital, right? You don't have a lot of capital. Marketing and salespeople require capital, right? I did not know before starting business that the government, has made so difficult for the small businessmen, right, to conduct business. From the tax standpoint, right? From hiring a new employee standpoint, right? You already have limited resources. If you want to grow those resources,
Constraining your cash basically for operations and growth.
exactly. So what choice are you left with? The choice you're left with word of mouth and keeping the relationships that you have. Through those relationships, you grow, right? Eventually, you come to the point where you say, hey, I have all this money stashed on the side. Now I can go hire some people, right, in sales team and marketing team, right? And I can do that, right?
It's so different from the e-commerce perspective, or let's say even different other kinds of industries that I have actually seen. It's a little bit different because in the e-commerce space, what they're looking at is they're testing out ads, because through organic means, it would just take forever to get to, let's say, maybe $10,000 of top line revenue per day or per year or per month, whatever they want to hit.
Right.
But what they're looking at is the ROAS, the return on ads.
Okay.
I guess in the logistics industry, it's a little bit different because who is your target audience? Is it government? Is it individual businesses? And then how do you target those businesses? So it's going to be a little bit different versus, let's say, an e-com brand. It would be totally different in that perspective.
You used a very good word right now, the return on ad, right? When I was working with Coca-Cola, I was given a project, right? And I was advised to put a course together, right, on return on ads. Coca-Cola is spending millions and millions of dollars on Coca-Cola ads. But the question is, does every dollar that you're spending, how much dollar are you generating in return, right? So I was sitting in a vice president room, right? And I said, hey, because there's no way of telling it. There's no formula that would tell you, hey, I spent $100 million on this ad, and through this ad, I generated $200 million.
Generally, it's hard to
quantify, right?
Especially with TV or anything else, right? Because it's like, oh, you can see the quantity, but you don't know who it hit, what target demographic, what age group, what income level. You can't.
And how much money they return spend, right? So at the end of the day, you have to quantify, right? But the thing is, it's a law of diminishing return. That's what it is, right? Yes, you spend money, but you don't spend money out of your wazoo, right? You come to a point and say, hey, like it's a curve like this. It's I actually wrote down f of x equals to under root x, right? I said this is what it is, right? After this point that you reach, any dollar that you're spending is not giving you any return, right? But the question is, what is that dollar, right? So return on ad, yes. for me, at a small business where I have limited resources, right? I have to think about it. Hey, if I'm going to run a marketing campaign on Google, let's say Google, right? How many customers? Google gives you fancy analytics, right? Hey, there's many people. Oh, you want the customer? What the first question they ask you? So what is your goal? Do you want to get like the calls, right, from your customers? Right. This is not how it works, right? These are all fancy words. Yes, it works for some people, but with me, I have to be very conscious of what every dollar that I'm spending, how much money is going to generate for me. What I realized within my industry, the word of mouth was the best way of doing it.
Works because that's how you get virality, right? And it doesn't cost you anything.
Doesn't cost me anything. And in return, the service that I provide, right? I know the other customer I got, how much revenue I made through that. For example, if I word of mouth, you told Tausif, right? You say, hey, Tausif, use Amir for a reverse logistic project, right? Mm-hmm. And I did a service for Tausif. I knew from your word of mouth, I made $5,000 from it. I could quantify it, right? So we are at that level, right? We are still in the upstream. We are going up right now, right? We are growing. Inshallah, the goal is to come to a point where we can say, hey, yes, I have a couple of dollars to throw for marketing or hire a fancy sales team, right? Right now, we've been in the business for 5 years. I believe first 5 years are very critical, right? It's like a teenager, right? Very critical age, right? You feel anything, you have to be very careful. Every step that you take, you have to be very careful with that, right? The marketing that I use is promotional marketing, generally speaking, right? Promotional products to penetrate the existing market.
So when you say promotional products, what does that mean?
Good. Brand name products, right?
Okay. So like any sort of provider of any, like Coca-Cola, as an example.
Right.
Right. Okay.
Coca-Cola, I would say I hired an agency to make notepads for me.
Got it.
Right. Notepads had Goti Miro.
Okay.
Right. And all my customers, wherever I would go, right, I would give you, hey, there's a notepad for you. And there's a notepad, if you flip it, I'll show you. They have sticky notes in it, right? On top of it says, last money. Actually, I looked at this Uline thing, right? I said, hey, that's fancy stuff. I'm in the logistic business. So I called the company. I said, I want a sticky note like this on the pallet. It's a pallet, right? One pallet. It looks very cute. I said, I want that on all sides. I want LMH, right? In all my numbers, and I'm going to go to my customers and I'm going to give them for free. That's it.
And then that way, basically you have free marketing for your business and somebody else's business, which keeps them top of mind.
Right. And it's not a recurring expense for them, of course, right? Which is even better. It's even better, right? So I spend money I spend every year. In the Christmas, what I'll do, we have ordered them for the Christmas, only customers or anybody new that I meet, I'm going to go and give it to them. Hey, there for you. They'll take these sticky notes, right? They keep it with them in the office, wherever, right? The name is over the front, right? So this is strategy-wise, this is more, I think, for us, it's more better to do promotional marketing than to do e-commerce marketing or online marketing, stuff like that.
It's interesting. I would even take a look at maybe if I were, taking a look at your business from the outside, I would even, because the one thing that would scare me is that if, let's say, for example, I have just one provider or supplier and they're 80% of my business, like you mentioned, I would want to diversify and expand that. So then that way, one person or one company isn't necessarily 80% of my business. Because in that way, even if I lose one arm, right, maybe they're 20% of my business a piece, right? I would then be substantially safer in terms of expansion and growth opportunities, et cetera. It would scare me as a business person, at least.
No, absolutely. And
Does that scare you?
That is a concern. That is a concern. Absolutely, right? That's why, so the 80% of the work that I'm talking about is all white glove work.
Oh,
right. We also have warehouses, in the warehouse segment where we have customers, right? So we have a tractor trailer. We have all that, all the different revenue streams going on. But you are absolutely right. So these are the things, right? You have to acquire more customers, okay? You don't want to put all your eggs in one basket, right? And this is why what we do is we try to reach out company. I give cold calls, right? I look at different companies that, and actually recently I used ChatGPT. I went in ChatGPT. I said, give me, list all the white glove companies in Georgia.
Yeah.
Right. And so this is one of the steps that we need to take to grow.
Maybe one of the things that comes to my mind is you can partner with them as well, right? Hey, if they can't deliver on a service, maybe you can partner with them to deliver additional service. Is it possible to do, like, let's say, for example, you have white glove delivery services here in Georgia, but they're unable to facilitate a deal or do something because either all their trucks or something is awry. They can use you or leverage you as a third-party contractor to then deliver the service.
So that's what we do, right? I contact the freight for people who get the white glove deliveries. I contact them too, right? And this is an everyday thing. Hey, Gillian, hey, this is Amir calling. This is Last Mile Hero. We actually have a warehouse. I have pictures made, and a lot of people, and this is again knocking on the door. It never stops. Okay. Right now, we're not physically knocking at the door. We're giving them phone calls. We're sending them emails, right?
Do you do any sort of direct mail marketing as well, or like sending them like postcards, similar like what real estate agents do on occasion? I'm just curious because like I'm asking these questions because not every business has the same kind of marketing, and it might be something that the audience might be interested in. I'm interested in it because I want to better understand your business.
No, you're right. But here's for me. Most of my mail that comes to me goes in a trash. I never even look at it, right? So I normally do things that put myself in that situation. How would I like to be solicited by somebody else for work, right? That's how I look at it. So when I call people, I don't even like calling, right? And I think old times it was very good that you go, you sit with people and you talk to people, right? Now everything is online. Hey, you want to become part of some company as a third-party contractor, right? Go and fill up this vendor form, right? And that vendor form goes God knows where, right?
And actually, another question that comes into my mind is, are you leveraging government contracts in your business as well? That may be another avenue for growth in terms of growing your business. Because I know that many, let's say, for example, I own a couple of restaurants. If I were to get, maybe 8A certified or something else along those lines, I could then provide, food services to the government. That would increase my business or my top line, of course, right?
Right.
So I was just wondering, do you leverage any sort of government contracts in your business today for logistics services? Because there are plenty of logistics services that do that.
Right. So leverage government contracts, you have to be part of. You have to have their license as well. Not license. Like if you want to do certification, you have to be listed as the government contract company or as a minority company as well, right? So we looked into that, but it's the government thing is always very slow, right? You have to go to Sam's website, right? Or you have to look at all the contracts, and you have to have this, you have to have that. For me, I think it's a lot of red tape, right? And that's why I personally, the other thing you want to look at, since you have limited time in the day, you want to see where do you want to focus your time, right? Okay, government looks very attractive, a lot of capital, a lot of money, a lot of work, right? But what is the probability that a business like us at this level will get that job, right? Because they're all bigwigs sitting over there, man. People who are who have 100 trucks, right? 200 trucks, right? And nobody's gonna, before you even do that, they're like, how many trucks do you have?
Well, no, I mean, actually, maybe we can talk about it a little bit later, but just for the audience to know as well, is that there are different tiers within the government sectors, right? So if you're like a tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, tier 4, government has to award a certain number of contracts at each individual tier. So depending on the business size and the top line revenue, it can be an advantage to you. It's just
and we did register with SAM, right? You have to be registered with SAM, right? They give you a key as well. We have that as well, right? I went to, one of the most attractive thing from the government standpoint was postal service. Okay. I wanted to get a contract from post office to deliver their mail. I'll tell you why. It's a very lucrative contract, right? For especially if you have trucks. Postal service is the only service that pays for your fuel and all that on the side. So generally, you pay for your own fuel, right?
So they'll pay for the fuel plus the mileage plus the depreciation, whatever.
right? All that stuff, right? So that's very lucrative. And I tried many times, right? I could not get into it because you send them emails, and then here's the red tape I'm talking about, right? I think I spent the whole month calling to get through them, right? Hey, you have to contact the Inspector General, whatever, right, of Atlanta. Go to the post office. Go there. Go that. Call this. Go that.
You go to so many hoops.
So many hoops that you get exhausted. You say, "Holy crap!" I mean, like, so with me, that's where my patients give up, right? I was like, man, should I be spending time over here doing more, or look for the customer that are direct customers, right? No government red tape, right? You go there, they either give you work or they don't. They tell you right away, hey, we're going to hire you, we're not going to hire you, right? And you know it, right? Then you can move on, right? You don't want to go to a black hole where you're contacting this guy, and suddenly you don't know where you are. So that's one of the frustrations I have experienced with the government contracts, right? That's why I never pursued that much. At some point, I said, "Hey, let's do."
Or maybe when the business expands, maybe you hire a VA to help you do that, right?
So when the business expands, when you have extra dollars to make, and here's another thing. A friend of mine, works with me, said a very, very, very beautiful thing. He said, "Hey, Amir, do the things that are profitable, right? Don't do the things that are not profitable, right?" Initially, we were doing deliveries. Our box truck would do every day. We would pick up, go shipments from here there. It was not making money. Yes, it was a lot of work, but from the profit standpoint, the profit was very low, right? We were barely making our ends meet, right? Then we decided, hey, instead of doing these deliveries, we're putting mileage on the truck, right? We're depreciating our truck both from the mechanical standpoint, right, and financial standpoint. Why don't we only focus on white glove jobs? We're only going to do projects. That's it. Each project would make you $3,000 to $5,000.
Wow.
Right. To keep a truck, my expense was $8,000. If I do 2-3 projects, I'm done. I made money. That's it. Right? On the other hand, I would do 100 deliveries, right? And what would be my net profit? $1,000.
Yeah, so the margins were 8%,
right? So what it is, do the things that have more profit and weed out all the things that are inefficiencies within your business, right? So that's what it was.
And that makes sense. I mean, from a business standpoint, you want to maximize your profits. So, I mean, that's the whole purpose of a business.
You can make a revenue $1 billion, right? If your operating income, right, is only a few percent, that means nothing.
Yeah.
Right? But if you make only revenue $50,000 a month and your net profit and operating income comes up to $20,000, whoa, you get a jackpot, right? $20,000 is good money, right? For a small business a month, right? Getting a profit. In the beginning, yes, you expand and then you capitalize on that and say, hey, where are you going to go on that, right? But so that's the mentality, and this is what happens when you have good employees as well, people who work with you. You cannot be Mr. Know-it-all every day, right? One of the good things about us is with my even drivers, people who work here, we sit together and say, hey, think about it. Let's share ideas. What can we do, right? What should we do? Okay, I'm going to get a warehouse. Should I get a warehouse? Okay, what can we do with the warehouse? Okay, we want to do a white glove residential delivery. Okay, should we do it or not, right? Stuff like that.
And actually, this brings up a very interesting question that was in my mind, is that when you started building up this business, did you actually create like a business plan, an academic paper, sort of like that type like thing? Or did you just have, hey, I just want to go do this? Or what was it? How did the idea of a last mile hero even come about?
So very good question. Before I did business, I even created a business growth cycle. Hey, first few years I'm here, first 3 years I'm here, next 5 years here. There was I'll show you the whole deck when the business growth cycle, right? In reality, things might work that way, they might not work that way, right? you have to be flexible, right? You cannot predict future, right? You have to go with what is best in the present, right? And then you have to steer yourself towards where it's going to make you. And as a business person, you have to make money. If you're not making money,
Why are you in business?
why are you in business, right? Absolutely. So that's what it is. And to go back, yes, made those fancy plans. I even did a straw man on the whole. While we were making the app, I was showing. I mean, the other day, like, man, that didn't work out that way, right? That's money lost, but again, you learn something, right?
Yeah, I mean, I would always take it as, okay, I'm spending money for an education somewhere, whether that's app development, web development, something. I learned something. How can I implement this better the next time? And then therefore, it's not like you feel, oh, I lost this money. Oh, what did I learn? What can I bring to the table the next time? It's sort of like business is just simply an iteration. It evolves each and every time. And a good example I'd like to bring out in the physical world is like a Porsche, right? 1964 to all the way to even today, they pretty much all look the same, but they had so many mini refinements along the way that they became some of the best cars on planet Earth.
Right. And sometimes these refinements are very minute, and sometimes these refinements are very huge. You have to make drastic decisions. I mean, we got hit with coronavirus, right?
How did COVID impact your business actually?
Very good question. Actually, when COVID impacted, I was like, I'm done, right? I'm 2 years into a business. I'm trying to grow, right? And suddenly, the major catastrophe of the century occurs, right? I was like, but what happened in our industry? So every industry got affected differently. Our industry was shipping. The shipping volume increased, right? We actually made more money during Corona because we could call our own rates. The rates went skyrocketed. The rates went high.
Then, therefore, the cost of goods also went up. We, as the individual consumers, felt that at the very bread and eggs and everything else went up.
Toilet papers. Yeah. The inflation went, out of the roof.
Yeah.
Because this is what capitalism is, right? Supply and demand, right? If there's more demand and there's less people are willing to supply it, the rate will go up, right? So that's what happened. But now we are suffering, after that, now we are suffering the consequence of it, right? The trucking industry, the logistic industry, the rates went really up. So everybody started buying trucks. Now, in 22, the rates, when the coronavirus got finished, everything went back to normal, the shipping level was the same. The supply of shipment was the same, right? And the supply of the trucks went up here, right? And the demand, it also flattened. So the trucks, the rates dropped, right? You have so many trucks in the market. You have limited shipment, the same shipment which was pre-pandemic level, right?
Mm-hmm.
The rates, and people start getting out of business. Mm-hmm. People start losing their trucks. Not only that, the rates of the goods went up, but the rates of the truck went up too. I'll give you an example. I purchased a truck in 2021 for $160,000. I purchased a truck in 2022 for $250,000.
$9,000.
Same truck. I purchased a trainer for $30,000 in 2021. In 2022, I purchased for $60,000. Right?
So imagine that. That's brutal, because then that means that your net profit margin is also probably cut down, right?
Right.
Your operating expenses went, they're probably still relatively the same, where they probably went up maybe 10, 15, 20%.
So the inflation
because the cost of fuel also went up.
Cost of fuel went up. So inflation and everything went up. Right? The rates went up with that too, right? Mm-hmm. So the people who were trucking business, right? Inflation did not affect them because they were charging high rates, right? But average Joe who sits has a desk job, right? For them, right? The bread, eggs were what, $3.99 became $8.99 for eggs, right?
Yeah.
So it changed.
It changed drastically.
So again, in the beginning, I said macroeconomic policies, right? And macroeconomic environment of the country affects every industry. So as a businessman or entrepreneur, in whatever businessman you are, right? You have to understand how the macroeconomic policies and environment affects your particular industry, right? With us, or even in accounting, we used to call it the events. Those events were unusual events. There was a word for that.
Going concern?
No, not going. Companies are going concern, right?
Yeah.
Unusual events that occur in the world, right? If that event occurs, how does that impact?
Okay, right. So it's sort of like a forecast with like inflection of points, basically.
It's not more forecasts. It's more of the impact, right, of an event, right? In accounting, there's a term for it, right? I don't remember.
I forget it off the top of my head because I remember we used to do something, at least when I was at college, where we would have, at least in financial forecasting and modeling, based off of XYZ presidents. If this person gets elected, this person gets elected, what are the probabilities of these policies being passed, which would then lead to this financial outcome or this financial outcome? So I forget the name of it also. I don't remember it all.
But these events, the governments and big companies actually appropriate money for those events. Okay, that like coronavirus, right? 100 years, once in 100 years, right? So what is going to happen? So stuff like that, right? So these they're called extraordinary events. In accounting, you have a line item for that. So what I'm saying was that, yes, macroeconomic, you have to be aware of the macroeconomic events that link it. Like war, Tosif was talking about war, right? Look at Ukraine war. Ukraine war has impacted the macroeconomic of the global macroeconomics.
Because natural gas costs went through the roof.
Right, natural gas, right? Or even wheat, right? Yes, we're talking about the commodity level, the food level, right? So these things do get effects. This is why I was looking at Biden and I was like, Brandon, what are you doing? Don't get into the war, because if you get into a war, right, small guys like us, big guys might survive, right? They have their or whatever, the golden parachutes, right?
Yeah.
People like us get crushed.
Yeah.
Right.
So very much the case, right? Very much. So, and just coming back, I want to circle back to something that you mentioned a little earlier. Is that you were mentioning that initially you had Mr. Lee and then yourself as employees. Today, what's your employee count look like? How many employees do you currently have? And how did you go about going from Mr. Lee to your next employee and your next employee? Because employees are always a concern in any business, because the quality of your employees then impact how your business will then grow in some cases, because sometimes you might have bad actors or bad apples in some cases. And in some cases, you might have these A-plus players that are just the golden touch of Midas, right? They touch anything turns into gold. So tell us a little bit more about your employee journey too, how you grew with your employees within the last mile hero.
So that's a very critical, very good question. Okay. Every business requires employees. Okay. If you're doing the work by yourself, you're not a businessman. You're not an entrepreneur, and you're self-employed. So, the way an entrepreneur is defined, that, as I was telling Tosif, that you can leave for 2 months and your business runs the same run. And who does that? Your employees, of course. Okay. One thing I've imagined, I compare myself with my employees. When I was an employee, how was I, right? And now the people that I have, it's very difficult to find good employees. Very difficult.
No, very much.
Very difficult. One of the questions I asked, I was out to my employees. They're not my employees. I don't call them employees. I call them my team members. Okay? Because I work with them as a team member. I never treated them like employees, right? I asked them a question. I said, tell me why Chick-fil-A, every time you go to Chick-fil-A, you have a line of people that you feel like it's lunchtime 24/7. What's up with that? Why is that? Chick-fil-A sandwich is average. There's nothing fancy about Chick-fil-A sandwich. It's a bun and a fried chicken in it and a pickle on it. That's what it is. But there's a line 24/7. What's up with that? So I was talking with Mr. Lee, right? Mr. Lee has passed away a few years ago, 3 years ago. One day we were coming back from New York and I was like, Mr. Lee, why is that? because we wanted to stop by and eat somewhere. Right? I said, why Chick-fil-A is like that? He said, no, what could be that? I was like, let's go in Chick-fil-A. Mr. Lee and I went in Chick-fil-A, and I went to the guy and they said, I need a job here. I said, who's the manager? They said, that's the manager. Manager came in and said, I need a job. He was like, okay. I said, how much do you pay? Do you know how much they pay?
Like, I don't know, maybe $12, $15.
$7 to $8. The federal minimum wage. I came to Mr. Lee and said, Mr. Lee, that's not the money. Then I needed a sauce. And I told the guy, I said, hey, I'm looking for this sauce. Could I go to your table and bring it? He said, go to your table and bring it to you. I went to my table. He brought the sauce, the extra sauce and extra napkins, and said, here you go. The guy looked clean. He was wearing a red shirt, his khaki pants, clean everything, clean cut, right? I said, Mr. Lee, this is what it is. Okay? It's the service, customer service they're providing. It's not the damn sandwich. Zaxby's sandwich is better than theirs, okay? But it's not the Chick-fil-A sandwich. It's the service. But the question was, with $7 an hour, how do they keep their employees so motivated? That's one of the biggest questions, right? Because everybody wants to make money, wants to get paid, but they don't want to do the work that they're supposed to. I was listening to somebody and said, hey, if you are going to do the bare minimum at your work, you'll never succeed. And that's true. I was not a bare minimum worker. I went way beyond my work, man. And that's what exhausted me too. That's what burned me out too, right? Because I did more than anybody else would do, right?
Reminds me of my EY days. Oh my God.
I would take the ownership of the work. When I would make a deck, right? I would look at it 10 times and say, I created this, right? And I would take an ownership pride in creating a deck, right? And creating it is not an easy job. You cranking out 20, 30 to 40 slides, right?
Depending on whatever the partner wants, right?
Right? But what I felt like most people would have put bare minimum. But the biggest question is how to motivate them to bare minimum. Do you pay them more? Does money help to motivate? No.
It depends on the employee, right? And what their ultimate needs are. But I think the answer to that question from my perspective would be, what kind of culture are you providing them? Is it a safe place for them? Is it can they vent out to a degree? Can they talk to you? Because if they create a relationship as if you're a friend to them and you never give up, right? And you always trust that they will do the right thing, then providing framework or the guidelines at the very beginning and then coaching them, promoting them, sort of like teaching this child, right? It's sort of like we give a little bit and a little bit more, and that child is then molded to become something amazing. It's the same thing with an employee. An employee is like a child, but they grow up to become something powerful, and I'll never forget.
And that sounds very good in the story.
Of course.
Okay. In reality, it's not.
I'm great at that.
As your intentions are do what you're saying, but the question is, it has to be both ways, right? Is the person willing to do it, willing to want that as well, right? Then I decided, I said, maybe I give that ownership in the business, right? Maybe that would motivate. The person will come to work, oh, no, this is my work, right? My business. So I'll tell you the story. I had a driver. I'm not going to name anybody. I gave him a proposition. He said, I'll buy the truck. You drive the truck. You're responsible for the maintenance. I'll pay you for a driver, the market rate, and then I'll give you 50% of the profit out of the truck. 50% of the profit. 50%. I'll pay you as a driver. You'll get a driver pay. I'll give you 50% of the profit. I bought him a brand new truck. I said, all you need to do is, don't come to me for this truck. If you need a driver, you hire a driver. If you need maintenance, go get maintenance done, right? Bring the bill, we'll pay it, because we're sharing it, right? I don't want to hear anything from it. I have other things to do. This is your division. You grow it, right? If you come to me, say, Amir, I need the truck, I'll buy you the truck. You get money out of that too, right? You take care of it. You know what he did?
What did you do?
In first year, he drove the truck. Second year, he went back to his homeland, left the truck for 3 months sitting over here without a driver. The truck's condition was so bad that it was never washed. I came out, it was like, holy crap, that's a brand new truck. So my friend who gave me he said, hey, Amir, do only the profitable works. He gave to me, he said, Amir, I told you, don't bring anybody in partnership with you. Give them good money as employees, but don't tell them. I said, but my motivation, see, hey, you're able to grow. You can have your own division, 50% of the profit, right?
Yeah, but that's not the desire of every employee.
But I was trying to figure out, right? What does an employee desire, right? Do they want more money? Do they want to feel like that it's their own business? Or I'm part of the business and ownership in the business, right? What is it? What do? Right? You coach them, you teach them, you tell them, because I can only do so many AT&T or Microsoft projects. I need good people who represent me and do what I do. Mr. Lee told me in the beginning, he said, if you want to do the thing right, the right way, do it yourself. He said, that's why I never had a business, because I knew nobody would come up to my expectations, right? And that's why I understood why he drove truck for 50 years, right? And never had any employees with all the knowledge he had, all the contacts he had, right? But that is not to discourage, right, from human race, right? Yeah. We still have a hope. So what I personally believe, their self-motivation within people is the only one that can help them become good employees, right? Yes, you can offer them good incentives, coaching, but at the end of the day, it depends on an individual if he wants to take a coaching, wants to do the things the right way or not, right? And that, again, comes to free will as human being, right? With me, I was a good employee. I consider myself a good employee, right? I went to work on time. I always dressed up nice, right? Every 2 weeks, I would go for a haircut, regardless my hair grown or not. Or even if my nephew called and said, Amir, why do you go for a haircut every 2 weeks? You don't even have hair on your head. I told him, it's not the hair. It's the principle. So again, it's a very good question, right? As an organization, if you want to grow, you have to eventually rely on people after people after people. And the question is, this chain of people, are they going to do the same? And corporations have problems too. As the corporations become bigger, they become less efficient.
They become more bureaucratic.
Or red tape, right? And then a lot of people, I felt like, in my personal view, I could be wrong, people don't take ownership of their work.
No, I would agree with that wholeheartedly, right? At least when I was in the corporate consulting space or even in corporate America, there were many times where I felt like I want to take ownership of it because I want to learn something. I want to take whatever I learned from there and apply it to my business. But I was always entrepreneurial as a kid. And I was thinking, hey, how do I take what I'm learning here and apply it? But the thing is, I didn't know where I could apply it or how I would apply it. I just knew that I had to learn and I had to do it. Because if I don't do it, then I'm wasting potential energy.
Right.
That could be used.
Time and energy, right? That's the most important thing, right? If you're not learning anything, then you have to learn something, right?
But most employees are not like that, right?
So most people are like that. That's why most people are sheep. They're not leaders. They're followers.
Yeah.
People like their comfort space and they just want to remain there, right? In the success, right, does not come from comfort. It comes actually from discomfort, right, that you endure. That's where success comes. But a lot of people don't want to do that, right? They don't want to come out of the comfort zone. And because your learning is always when something change is more learning, and that's when you learn. If you don't change, you're not going to learn, right? You're going to stay the same.
And that's the death of most businesses as well, right? Because most businesses don't change or adapt. And we saw that in Corona at times, right? In 2021, 2020, 2020, even, 2022, basically, we saw many businesses that didn't adapt. And therefore, as a result, they failed.
You have to adapt. Again, you have to you have to be aware of your surroundings, right? Whether they're government policies, right? Whether global events, right? Shipping industry shuts down for the whole 2 months and you have nothing to deliver, no shipping coming. What happened? China shut down, right?
Yeah. Because the production of goods can't be done, and then therefore they can't leave the port of Guangzhou.
Right. So everything is related to everything else, right? Right? If something happens in one part of the world,
The supply chain basically breaks.
right? And we think in America, people understand that. I mean, what would be, I think the dumbest thing that was ever done to just have all the manufacturing outsourced from this country, right? To countries like China and or the other countries. So if something happens, right, there you go, you're done.
It's very much the case. I agree.
This thing happened with the microchips, right?
Yeah. Like, for example, you have TSMC, which is a semiconductor producer out in, I believe, Taiwan, right? And then these other foundries outside of the United States, Intel, I don't believe they were producing chips here, or they shifted it overseas and they brought it back. And then, some other manufacturers are also bringing their chip manufacturing back to the United States. Of course, the cost is higher, but then at least they can deliver the quality of service that they want, right?
Right.
And it happens to be a very similar concept or idea that you were telling us about earlier.
Right. I mean, imagine because of the microchip, I couldn't even buy a dishwasher, right?
Yeah. Or cars even.
Well,
some of the cars were in cars.
The car is a big, technology thing, right? And dishwasher, right? I couldn't even buy that, right? And what it's made in Taiwan, and they're out of it. They're going to manufacture whenever they're going to manufacture, right? And so the entire production in America was shut down because of that, right? And that trickled down to our shipping industry, right? Now the automotive parts are not moving in, right? The shipment is not coming from China, right? And here you go, everything is then starting collapsing. So again, so this is what it is. One thing I want to mention for a business standpoint, health is the most important thing in a businessman and entrepreneur or every person's life, right? Especially in my community, I've seen our businessmen or entrepreneurs, they're very unhealthy.
Of course, that's very true in the Desi community in large, whether the Pakistani, Indian, Bangladeshi, whatever, they're
very unhealthy. Your business is as good as you live, right? As your health is. If your health is not good, it doesn't matter you're making million, trillion, billion, right? If you drop dead the next time, right? It's the least. So health is very important. What health also does is, because business is a very stressful thing, right? But working out or any kind of physical activity, right, doesn't have to be high impact physical activity, right? It can be push up to did
while you're walking, right? 15, 20, 30 minutes, 50.
Or even on the weekends, right? Walking. That will keep you at least alive, right? So you're able to make your next dollar. Otherwise, you're 6 feet under, right?
Yeah, of course. I guess let's go ahead and conclude the podcast a little bit.
Sure.
But where can we find you? How can people reach out to you if they have any questions about Last Mile Hero, or they want to ask you?
Hey, Amin, if you're listening, let's do the website. Go to Amir.com. That's going to be the point of contact for me, right? Or they can call me anytime. I'm not they're a lot bigger businessman than I am, right? I'm not a big businessman as revenue-wise people would make. But if somebody wants to reach out, somebody ever needs help, right? I'm always willing to help. To help you grow. Or, for example, my friend Shrek came in and he said, hey, give me Pakistan. His family was here. He said, I'm going to work. Initially, he came to buy my truck, right? And I told him, don't do that. You have family, so think of something else, right? So he decided he wants to do this Amazon store. I said, and I have the space. Do whatever helps you do it, right? So whatever I can do, right? Even from talking about or having any ideas and talking about any ideas, right? Yeah, I'm always thumbs up to them, right? People are welcome. If they think that I'm worthy of it, it's okay, right? I'm here. I'm willing to talk, and again, I have nobody to cry for me. I think.
And I think that's one of the reasons why I created the podcast. It's so that way we can actually talk about so many of the issues that are facing entrepreneurs and how we can potentially solve it, how we can work together as an ummah, right? Because this is not something that many people even talk about or they want to talk about. Like, for example, I had to recently close down one of my stores. And the amount of turmoil and stress that put on me, that in itself was almost crushing. But alhamdulillah, I'm lucky that I have people like you that can guide me through these kind of, thoughts or even business problems, right? Because at the end of the day, what is an entrepreneur? An entrepreneur is a problem solver. They find problems, they have problems that come towards them, they solve them, and they move forward. And then that is ultimately what builds their character, and they become beacons of hope for the entire community. And that's what we hope to inspire here. The podcast.
Right. And see, this is one of the other good things that you talk about. It builds your character. I'm not the same person that I was when I worked for other people. I was a very shy kind of person. I was not very talkative, right? I not even sing to that. I was not like that. But it gave me self-confidence. The other thing is it gave me self of achievement. When you create something with your own hands and you see it grow, it's not about the money. It's never about the money. It's about seeing something that you created and it's growing and saying, wow, an achievement in life. The other thing, again, being an entrepreneur is not everybody's cup of tea. Okay? Know yourself, know your capabilities as well, okay? And what you said, it's a continuous problem solving, right? Problems are coming from all different directions. Right? And you have to solve them. There's nobody else is going to solve them.
Absolutely.
Right. So that's what it is. If you're up for that task, right, and
then entrepreneurship is the game. Right.
Right.
It's the game. Well, thank you so much, Amir.
Thank you.
It was a pleasure, and thank you for coming out.
I feel sorry for you. Give away to say but you look good. We should do it.
All right. I guess